What's going on, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of my top 50 roller coaster countdown. In my last video, I counted down roller coasters 50 through 26, and today I will present my top 25. As I stated last time, 2023 is my biggest year yet, as I traveled and rode coasters outside of the United States for the first time. As a little tease, many of the reasons I made my first trip to Europe will be represented in this video. Before I begin the rankings, just a quick reminder that these are my personal opinions. Feel free to leave any comments about agreements, disagreements, or any other thoughts you have, but please keep it civil. With that said, let's resume my countdown. A couple of RMCs will be kicking off the top 25, and let's start with Twisted Colossus from Six Flags Magic Mountain. This coaster is intended for dueling and is designed as a Mobius loop. What does that mean? It means you get to do both sides of the layout. I feel like I hear more people like the blue side better, but I personally like the green side a little more. The sequence of the twist and shout, followed by the double down, followed by the zero-G stall are all elements superior to the blue side. I personally don't mind the ride being broken into two halves, as I consider it more of a 2-for-1 ride than one whole package with a big dead period in the middle. One major flaw though with this ride is the lack of actual duels taking place. This ride does pretty well based on its elements alone, but when this thing duels, there are a few more fun experiences than that. An RMC that opened up in 2023 that seemed to have gotten really high praise is Wildcat's Revenge from Hershey Park. I'm not gonna lie, it took getting a night ride on this for me to know this was even a top 25 ride. This is a ride that definitely needs some warm-up time to get the desired pacing. In addition, this ride does lack standout moments. The only two that stick out to me are the wave turn and the third inversion, which is interesting since it's so similar to other RMC inversions. The profiling at the end of that zero-G roll makes it so that you are forced down into your seat, which I found interesting but enjoyable. Other than that, I didn't really find anything else super impressive with that ride. So why is this ranked so high, you ask? Well, the night ride provided that out-of-control feeling that I had been searching for my rides prior. The ending sequence especially felt so much more insane than anything I had experienced on Wildcat earlier in the day. Wildcat is a great addition to the amazing park, but frankly, it didn't come close to topping my favorite ride at Hershey. Another thing that bothers me about Wildcat's Revenge is Hershey ripped off a coaster name from another Pennsylvania park. That ride, of course, is Foms Revenge at Kennywood. The original Aero Looper turned Morgan Hyper does a great job of providing a sense of speed in the first half and delivering strong ejector airtime in the second half. The lap bars being as unrestricting as they are also help facilitate the amazing airtime. For being over 20 years old since the Morgan transformation, it still runs butter smooth. My biggest complaint about this ride is how during the first half, it's purely about speed, and in the second half, it's purely about airtime. To me, it feels like this ride is always at any point one-dimensional, even if it's executing its elements well. I still give Kennywood and Morgan major props for turning Foms Revenge into the ride it is today. Okay, now we've reached a point in my rankings where the quality takes a big step up in my opinion. That all starts with Pantheon, the intimate multi-launch out of Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. On my Europe trip, I thought for sure a similar ride in Toutatis was going to be better than Pantheon. That was not the case. As I mentioned in the last video, Toutatis had a big flaw with the number of trims on the top hat. Pantheon does not have that issue. The first halves of Pantheon and Toutatis are extremely similar, however once Pantheon crests the top hat, it hauls for the rest of the layout. The outer bank is full of strong airtime, and the zero-G stall might be the best iteration by Intamin I've ridden. The rest of the ride features a few rapid turns that end on a thrilling note. Pantheon may not be the longest ride, and the lack of theming relative to other Busch Gardens coasters may be a bit disappointing, but no doubt Pantheon is a powerhouse and is easily the top ride at that park. Two almost identical coasters tie for the next spot, and they are Wonder Woman Golden Lasso coaster at Six Flags Fiesta Texas and Stunt Pilot at Silverwood. Railblazer, another similar coaster to these two, was closed during my visit to California's Great America, so that is not included here. There might not be a better paced 30 seconds on coasters than the first drop to the brake run with these single rail layouts by Rocky Mountain Construction. The instant one element is completed, you fly right into the next one. The first drop in the back, especially on Stunt Pilot since it has two more cars than Wonder Woman, absolutely shoots you out of your seat. While the restraints on Wonder Woman prior to the upcoming renovation have been a bit uncomfortable, the Stunt Pilot restraints are rather comfortable despite the constant bombardment of airtime. This is one RMC Raptor layout I hope some smaller parks look into adding because these are so intense and so forceful and make for an amazing, unique coaster experience. The best new for 2023 coaster I rode came from a small park in Georgia. That, of course, is Air Force One, the ground-up RMC at Fun Spot Atlanta. I rode Air Force One a day before rewriting Fury 325, and it made that ride seem extremely tame. I also knew after only one ride on Wildcat's Revenge that not only was Air Force One the better new for 2023 RMC, but it was significantly better. The layout starts off with a good first drop and then goes into the only kind of meh moment for me on the ride, which is the truss dive. After that though, this ride is nuts. The stall is amazing, the outer bank is probably RMC's best to this point, and then the pacing afterwards is crazy with the airtime, the high speed inversions, and the forceful turnaround. This small park outside of Atlanta really went all out adding something of this caliber. It's time for the wooden coasters to take their turn, and a string of 4 in a row start with Hades 360 at Mount Olympus. I think by default, having only ridden this once, this has to be the lowest ranked Woody of this group. One of my priorities in 2024 is to get back to Mount Olympus and get more rides on this. Like many coasters by the Gravity Group, Hades 360 is fast-paced and is very aggressive, both in the actual layout and the roughness of the track. The one ride was early enough in the day where the roughness didn't bother me, but I can imagine it being much harsher after it's been running for a while on a hot day. In terms of the layout, the 2 defining features of this ride are the tunnel that passes under the parking lot and the barrel roll inversion. The tunnel is fantastic, having the ride's great speed coupled with the transitions occurring in the dark. The airtime is really solid on the return trip back to the station to cap the ride off. Hopefully my plans to finally get back on Hades 360 next season come to pass, because I really want to know if this ride is as elite as I believe it might be. Prior to Zambezi Zinger opening in 2023, I'd ridden all the great coasters international Woodies in the United States, and without a doubt the top one is Gold Striker, California's Great America. Sadly, this ride might have an expiration date with CGA closing in the next decade, possibly sooner after the Six Flags Cedar Fair merger news came out, but I will make it a priority to get back on this at least one more time just because it's such an amazing ride. No other GCI in the United States comes close to this ride's pacing and intensity. The airtime and transitions are far more aggressive than any other GCI. I seriously considered moving this ride up in front of this wooden coaster group just because of how impressed I was from my visit in 2022. I would love for somehow this ride to get relocated when CGA closes, but I will absolutely book flights back out to Northern California just to get back on this beauty before its potential demise. I haven't ridden this next ride since 2019, but I cannot forget the incredible airtime that El Toro, the intimate prefabricated wooden coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure, provided. I have not been on another wooden roller coaster that tries to launch you out of your seat the way El Toro does. The first drop on the back is ridiculous, and is immediately followed by 2 incredible ejector airtime-filled camelback hills. The middle section of the ride is a bit lackluster, especially compared to the insane beginning. El Toro does have one more trick up its sleeve before the finale, and that is the legendary Rolling Thunder Hill. Not only is the ejector incredible on that hill, it's sustained. A final string of S-bends polishes off this ride. Probably more than any other coaster on this list, El Toro pretty much relies purely on its airtime, in which the rest of the ride is kind of so-so. However, the airtime is so aggressive it easily lifts El Toro this high on my list. The highest ranked wooden coaster of this group may come as a surprise to anyone who has not seen my rankings before, but here I have Mind Blower at Fun Spot Kissimmee. Is this ride smooth? Absolutely not. But is this ride compact, aggressive, incredibly paced, and intense? Heck yes it is. This is the type of compact wooden coaster I would love to see some smaller parks build, however I can understand the reluctancy due to the rather rough nature of this ride. The ride just flies through the course and there is not one dull moment. The first drop isn't the largest, but it definitely packs a punch. After the barrel roll over the station, this ride really embodies what I love about the Gravity Group, the focus of strong lateral forces. Consistently, this ride is always making some sort of transition that throws you all over the place. I've actually only ridden this at night both visits I've made, but going around with a lit up structure definitely adds to the experience. I absolutely love this ride more than most, but this ride is such power I cannot help it. Okay, the European invasion in my top 25 has arrived. The first European masterpiece to appear is Conda from Walibi, Belgium. This intimate mega coaster features one of the better themes of any coaster I've been on, including one of the most spectacular zero cars out there. It was unfortunate the day I visited was cold and rainy, which may have resulted in slightly more sluggish rides, but that did not stop this ride from displaying its wide variety of airtime. The first drop is Twisted, which provides laterals as you fly out of your seat. The next hill is the typical intimate strong ejector camelback found on many other rides. The outer bank is also a fantastic moment. The non-inverting Cobra Roll didn't do too much in terms of forces, but everything after that element did. The rest of the ride stayed low to the ground and provided amazing ejector pops during the last stretch. Walibi, Belgium has absolutely stepped up their game, and adding this beauty makes for an amazing headliner to this park. Going right on back to Florida, this time heading to Busch Gardens, Tampa for Iron Gwazi, their RMC Hyper Hybrid. I probably have this ranked a bit lower than most, but my biggest issue was the first ride I had on it. The pacing was nowhere close to where I was hoping it to be, and the elements felt really lackluster. That said, the 3 rides I had on this later in the day were fantastic. The ride's signature element, the Alligator Death Roll, is certainly one of the better inversions I have experienced. I also thought the wave turn was really well executed on this. Another thing I would say about this ride is that several elements are taken higher off the ground, which does make the pacing a little inconsistent in those areas. The night ride on this, however, was spectacular and did feel more out of control. While this ride may have ended up a bit lower than I thought it might, I could see this moving up a bit in my rankings when I have a chance to visit again. A modern Vekoma from Poland made an appearance in part 1 of my countdown. Now the best Vekoma I've ridden is the amazing Lek coaster, the Bermuda Blitz out of Legendia. Abysses may have been a fun coaster, but Lek coaster is an extreme and forceful ride. For the first 3/4 of the ride, the pacing is non-stop and is extremely dynamic. The twisted first drop, similar to Conda, is even more compact, really delivering lateral force. The most impressive feature of Let Coaster is how at moments the ride transitions from heavy positive forces directly into ejector airtime hills. The inversions, especially the roll through the station, are so graceful yet are taken at such a fast speed. The only negative thing about this ride, and it may have been due to the weather, was how much it slowed down for the finale. Other than that, this is an incredible coaster, and it really shows just how far Vekoma has come. Now we've reached the tier of roller coasters I would consider world class. Just missing out on the top 10 is Intimidator 305, the Intamin Giga coaster from King's Dominion. This high-speed, low-to-the-ground intensity machine just bombards you with positive G-force the entire course. I never got to experience this ride prior to the reprofiling of the first turnaround following the first drop, but I can only imagine how much more intense that must have been. Still, in addition to the positive G-forces, there are a few rapid transition moments that are absolutely incredible. Honestly, I don't mind the Intamin vest restraints, and I actually thought they still allowed some solid airtime. The only negative I can say about this ride is that it has a heavy emphasis on positive G-force, but that is executed so well, and is one of, if not my favorite sensations to experience on a roller coaster. Therefore, I have no guilt having a ride like this as high on my list as I do. From one amazing Intamin to another, the best coaster currently residing in Florida is Jurassic World's Velocicoaster, Universal Islands of Adventure's Extreme Multi-Launch. As of now, I don't think I've been on another coaster that has a better marriage of great theming with an incredible ride experience like Velocicoaster does. The first half of the ride experience is more about the theming, as you navigate around tight corners within the Raptor paddock. Admittedly, the only real flaw with this ride is a few moments in the first half meander a bit, but there are also some fantastic airtime and hang time moments. Then the second half is where the ride really shines. The launch up a top hat leads into a plethora of airtime, lateral and positive forces in the back half of the ride. Like fellow Floridian coaster Iron Gwazi, Velocicoaster has an insane inversion of its own, being the Mosasaurus roll, rapidly flipping you over just feet above the water below. This is the ride that really put Universal on the map for me, and I cannot wait to see more creations like this in their other parks in near future. This next ride was such a joy to experience. The reviews for it for the last couple of years put it at such a high bar, but the Mach Extreme Spinner Ride to Happiness from Plopsaland Japan did not disappoint. Until Ride to Happiness, pretty much every other thrill coaster I had ridden primarily focused on either an intense experience or focused on providing a fun factor. This is the one ride that is the ultimate best of both worlds, having a high fun, high intense experience. The theming in this area is stunning, and I did not want to get off this ride, and that's what I did. I rode this all day, partially in the rain, 46 times. What can I say? The onboard soundtrack is amazing. The launches are punchier compared to other Mach coasters. The first drop in the back is incredible. The inversions are so unique and provide such a thrilling sensation going through them in various different directions. And finally, the finale stretch is so forceful with its ejector airtime, it leaves you speechless as you reach the brake run. This is a special ride, and it puzzles me why a family park like Plopsaland will build something like this, but I will be forever grateful to them and Mach Rides for bringing Ride to Happiness into the world. If you ask me which coaster I believe the highest percentage of enthusiasts are ranking it as their top ride, I would guess that's probably Steel Vengeance, Cedar Point's RMC Hyper Hybrid. In the many visits I've made to Cedar Point since this opened, not one time can I say I've had an underwhelming ride on this. The pacing is always on point, and this ride lives up to its reputation having the most seconds of airtime of any coaster in the world. The inversions are all taken at a fast speed, but my favorite is the cutback after the first turnaround. The whole second half through the structure is fantastic with non-stop airtime, barrel rolls, and wave turns. This sequence is especially awesome at night as you navigate through the lit-up structure. If I had any critiques regarding Steel Vengeance, the first drop isn't the best, and this ride does lack positive G-forces. Outside of that, there's absolutely nothing else negative I can say about this ride, and can completely understand anyone who has this as their top coaster. That said, while Steel Vengeance may be a lot of people's favorite coaster, for me it's not even the best ride at the park, because right next door you'll find the Intamin Blitz Maverick. This ride really changed the coaster game, as it showed you don't need to build the tallest or the fastest coaster to have an incredible ride experience. Maverick focuses on staying low to the ground and provides great intensity as it navigates tight turns in the first half. These trains feature the same Intamin vest restraints as Intimidator 305, and again, I find the airtime on this ride to still be awesome. The horseshoe roll is the only so-so element here, but then the train takes you to a tunnel for the launch into the second half. After launching out of the tunnel, the train turns around a pond and heads towards two of the best coaster elements out there, the Stangle Dives. The whip on these elements, especially the second one, is unlike anything else I've experienced. The coaster designs by Intamin are second to none, and Maverick is another example of how well they innovate and produce elite ride experiences. Now comes a ride I have personally grown to love more and more as I ride it. Here is Outlaw Run, the RMC topper track from Silver Dollar City. I made my third visit to Silver Dollar City in 2023, and I wanted two things from Outlaw Run: to verify it was still as incredible as I remembered it, and to finally get the legendary night ride that everyone has talked about. Both of these things came to pass. Outlaw Run may not be the longest ride, but every single element has a purpose and is executed perfectly. The airtime is strong, the pacing is outstanding, the wave turns are so good, and the double barrel roll finale is a terrific way to end after 30 seconds of non-stop action. As for the night ride, it's without a doubt one of the best night rides I've experienced. The darkness combined with flying through the layout just left me speechless. I'm probably one of the few that share this opinion, but Outlaw Run is currently the best RMC operating in the United States. But it is no longer my top RMC, because I took a trip to Poland to ride the incredible Zadra, the ground-up hyper-hybrid at Energylandia. Any pacing I praised the last couple of RMCs for having, double that with Zadra. Holy cow, I had high expectations for this ride, and they did not disappoint. The first drop on Zadra leads straight into a twisted turnaround hill that is so forceful. The 0G stall following is probably the best one I've experienced. Then comes the wave turn, and this is where Zadra really ramps up the intensity. The way you turn to the left and then twist immediately to the right during the wave turn is incredible. Zadra doesn't have many airtime moments, but the one camelback following the wave turn certainly has ejector airtime. Following is an underflip that leads into an airtime-filled double down. Coming to the end of the ride, one more element that stood out to me was this S-bend leading into the final inversion. The whip on the S-bend was borderline violent, which all of my top 5 coasters have at least one moment that feel that out of control. Starting my trip to Europe with Zadra was truly special, and RMC absolutely outdid themselves with this masterpiece. Sorry, Cedar Point, you no longer have the best 1-2 punch I've experienced. That honor now belongs to Energylandia, because not only do they have Zadra, they also have Hyperion, their massive intimate hypercoaster. Zadra may have met my incredibly high expectations, but Hyperion absolutely exceeded them. The trains on this ride are so fantastic with the comfortable modern intimate lap bars that allow a lot of freedom. This ride is massive, dropping almost 270 feet, and halfway down there's a kink that throws you out of your seat. The camelback hill following is extreme ejector airtime, but then the ride's best moment follows, the dive drop. In the back, the amount of lateral force exerted on you is insane. The main focus for the rest of the ride is a series of smaller ejector hills, a couple of really forceful stangle dives, and a few overbanks. Hyperion to me feels like a greatest hits of several other Intamin coasters wrapped into one. I would not have guessed Hyperion would have been my favorite coaster from my Europe trip, but this ride along with Zadra are incredibly special rides, and Energylandia is now one of my all-time favorite parks, largely due to these amazing creations. The most disorienting and one of the most intense roller coasters I have ridden is X2, the aerodynamics multi-dimension thrill machine from Six Flags Magic Mountain. Prior to Europe, I don't know if there was a coaster I was more amped up to ride than X2. I had played Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, and this ride was the one that always stuck in my head. In 2021, I finally got to ride this beast of a coaster, and it was everything I could have hoped for. An additional rail in the track design controls where the seats rotate, and the ride kicks off by rotating you facing down an almost vertical drop. The two Raven turns are also so different, but they both provide an intense experience in different ways. The first basically launches you upward, and the second tries to rip you apart as it leads back into the brake run. X2 is one of the most unique roller coaster creations ever, and it's sad that aerodynamics went under after this design. The most intense roller coaster I've ridden comes from the sweetest place on earth, Skyrush, the intimate hypercoaster from Hershey Park. Somehow I've made the long trek to Hershey 3 of the last 4 years, and the main reason for that is to ride the insanity known as Skyrush. There's not another coaster that emphasizes violent maneuvers like Skyrush does. The first drop, similar to Hyperion, has a kink halfway down. However, because of the speed from the cable lift going over the top combined with the lap bars, this drop tries to throw you out of the train, especially in the back wing seat. The transitions following from the high-speed turns filled with positive Gs to probably the strongest airtime I've experienced still blows me away. The second half of the ride features a variety of twists and stangle dives, and because of the lap bars, your entire upper half of your body feels like it's going to fly out. This is certainly not a ride for everyone, but to me, I am beyond impressed with Intamin taking this creation to the limits and giving the most ridiculous coaster experience I have done. While Skyrush is a bit more intense than my top coaster, it's only about a half of the length. My top ride once again is the Voyage, the massive wooden roller coaster from Holiday World. The design of this ride is incredible with how it's able to keep its speed for over 6,000 feet of track. The first third of the ride is a combination of huge airtime hills diving into tunnels in between. The next third is a twister section way back in the woods that primarily focuses on lateral forces on a large turnaround, followed by a couple of 90-degree banks. The final third is insanity, starting with a triple down, and is followed by a combination of lateral turns and ejector airtime pops the rest of the way. If you're lucky enough to ride this at night, the last third is even more intense, traveling at faster speeds from running all day, combined with the darkness. There are only a couple of roller coasters operating worldwide right now that I think could challenge Voyage for its #1 placement, but as of now, I don't foresee Voyage losing its spot on the top anytime soon. And there we have it, my 2023 Top 50 Roller Coaster Rankings. First, thank all of you that took any time to watch either this or last week's video. 2023 was a special year for me getting to ride some of Europe's best roller coasters. 2024 doesn't look to be nearly as exciting in terms of trips or new roller coasters opening. However, I am hoping to get to a couple of new parks in the US that I haven't been to before. I hope you all have a safe and enjoyable 2024. With that, have a great day and take it easy.